Okay, for this unit, we're going to make an assembly. We're going to create three drawings. We're going to create a base, we're going to create a cap, we're going to create a bushing. Let me go ahead and we're going to then assemble them. Take them and put them in a drawing and then assemble them. I have provided for you the bolt, the bolt. So we have the base, the cap, the bushing, and then the bolt. The first thing we want to draw is going to be the base. So let's go ahead and start drawing that. You can find your PDF files if you need them, your PDF files in the drawing that have all the dimensions to them, have all the dimensions to them. That's in that unit. Look at your PDF files as you have done in other classes. Look at the PDF file and then draw from that using those dimensions. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go over here and draw a rectangle. Let's draw a rectangle. Let's start at 0, comma 0 from the keyboard, and then it's 9, comma 3 units. Now be careful, it's 3 units. Okay. Now let's go ahead and extrude that up. Let's say extrude. We're going to come over here, use the extrude command, grab that, and we're going to pull it up. And the height of this extrusion is 2.50. 2.50. Okay, we're going to put it in. Now, what we want to do is we want to start working on making these cuts in here. I'm going to go ahead and start the second part up here. So let's take our UCS first. UCS, 3 points, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to use my polyline like I have done in the past, and I'm going to cut out these two edges right here, okay? I'm going to come over, it's 1 unit over this way. And 1 unit down, 1 unit over here, and 1 unit down. So 2 notches over here. So let's do it. Let's use a polyline. I'm going to pick a point there. I'm going to come over F8, which is going to allow me to move over this direction straight, 1 unit. And then I'm going to move down 1 unit. Okay. I'm going to come over here and draw a rectangle. I'm going to copy, CP for copy, from the keyboard, copy that to this element over here. Then I'm going to extrude both of these elements. Pull them through, okay? Now let's subtract them. Main object, enter, take these two elements out, okay? I'm going to go ahead and erase this line, this polyline that I used for a guideline. Now, let's come over from here. We want to move over a half a unit of this element here, half a unit, and then 0.25, 3.25, and draw these. Now, don't cut the holes through the bushing until last. However, I'm going to type in the word plan, 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 okay? That will turn the view normal to the screen. The UCS, the X and Y will be normal to the screen. So now we can draw. I'm going to draw a polyline. I'm going to pick a point. Again, just 0.5. That gets us to there. And then 1.25 gets us to right here. And then we're going to go over 3.5, 3.5. Okay. Now that'll get us to here. Then I'm going to come back and say C for circle. You can use the at or the object snap. Fine. I'm going to pick a point. Again, just 0.5. That gets us to there. And then 1.25 gets us to right here. And then we're going to go over 3.5, 3.5. Okay. Now that'll get us to here. Then I'm going to come back and say C for circle. You can use the at or the object snap. Find your last point. And the radius we want on this is 1.25. 1.25. Enter repeats the last command. Find the last circle. Put it in there. Now I'm going to draw a polyline. I'm going to go from the quadrant of my element here to the quad to this element over here, just like that. Okay. Now I'm going to draw another polyline on top. I'm going to use that for a trimming line. Okay. Trim, TR for trim from the keyboard. Enter again. Then touch the elements you don't want. We don't need this piece, or this piece, or this piece up here. Okay, this is what we're wanting right here. I also need to draw a piece right here. 1.5 down, 1.5 over, 1. Okay, so let's use the polyline. Again, I want to go to the midpoint, just the midpoint right here. Now the reason I use the 2D poly is so it stays on the same z-axis. So we only want to go down 0.75, correct? Okay, now let's offset 0.75. 0.75 on this side and on this side gives me a total distance of 1.5. Then I'm going to draw another polyline right here. Okay, so let's erase this. Let's trim, TR for trim from the keyboard. Enter, trim this out. So far we have this. I'm going to erase this line we used for the trimming line a while ago. Turn my BP 315 so you can see it, 315.30, and tell you there it is. See? Now I didn't draw these holes yet. Okay, there's a reason. If I draw them now and cut them through here, they'll fill back in when I add in this piece here. So we'll cut them last. I'm going to draw what they call a dovetail slot right here. Okay, let's go back to plan view, PLAN. Plan will turn the UCS normal to your screen. Again, I'm going to use the polyline. I'm going to pull it this way. I'm going to type in 2.5. Okay, I'm going to pull it up this way. Okay, just 0.5. I'm going to come all the way across over here, 4 units, and I'm going to pull it back down to here, 0.5. Okay, now this is just going to help me construct my dovetail slot. I do want to come back and I want to do a polyline, and I want to pick a point right here from the keyboard, angle override, the little less than sign, 45 degrees. Move your cursor. See how it goes to a 45 degrees? Again, I want to do the same thing. A polyline. Pick this point right here, do an angle, and then you can type in 135. Remember, it's It's 90 here, 0 here, 90 here, and 45 over here. So that's 135. And just press enter. You got to press the enter, then move your cursor. Okay. Now let's use the fillet command up here. The fillet. We're going to use a 0 radius, and we're simply going to touch that line and that line. See how they, okay, let's do it again. Fillet this line and touch down here, that line. There's our dovetail slot. Okay, now as you can see, this is not one solid element. This is actually arcs, lines. So what we got to do in order to work with it, remember, is we've got to have a closed entity. So I'm going to use draw. We can use region or we can use boundary. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and use a boundary. I'm going to pick a point in this area right here. As you can see, it highlighted it. And then I'm going to do it again, enter. And I'm going to pick a boundary down here, enter. Okay, everything's set up. Let's do the VP, 315 and 30. Let's go this direction. Okay, first of all, we know this one's going all the way through. So we subtract, select it, extrude it through, and subtract it. Main object, enter. Choose this end, extrude. Okay, looks good so far. So we have a conceptual design with our dovetail. Next, we want to extrude this. Now I'm going to extrude this. I'm going to take this. I'm going to extrude it. And this extrusion is 4 units. 4 units. I'm going to move it out of the way. I just drew it. Move it over here a little bit so we can see what's happening. Color. And I'm going to change my color to yellow for this procedure. I'm going to draw a polyline. First, after I change my color, I'm going to change my UCS back to world. UCS, enter, world, enter. And then I'm going to draw a polyline, and I'm going to go from the midpoint of this element to the midpoint of this element back here. Okay? Now, that's on this one. I'm going to come down. Shades of gray. I did it on this one only. See it? Then I'm going to do the same thing on this one over here. I'm going to go from the world, enter, and then I'm going to draw a polyline, and I'm going to go from the midpoint of this element to the midpoint of this element back here. Okay? Now, that's on this one. I'm going to come down. Shades of gray. I did it on this one only. See it? Then I'm going to do the same thing on this one over here. I'm going to go from the midpoint of this element, this edge, to the midpoint of this edge over here. Now what that does, that's the middle of this object, and that's the middle of this object. These are two common points. It's this point and this point. So if I say move, I grab this element right here, and I move it from this midpoint, grab the line to this midpoint, then we'll place it in there for me. See? Nice and neat. let's union these two. I grab this element right here, and I move it from this midpoint, grab the line to this midpoint, then we'll place it in there for me. See? Nice and neat. So let's union these two elements. Let's put this one and this one together. And there we have it. Now we have extra lines in here. So E for erase, all elements are to remove. Let's remove the model. Okay. Now let's take our UCS. Take our UCS. See your object. UCS, 3 points again. 1, 2, 3. We come back and draw a circle. Make sure you're referencing this arc. Don't hit this one by mistake. Reference this one. Find the center, CEN from the keyboard, and the center. And this is going to be 0.75. Enter. Okay, we enter it again. We come over here again, reference the center of this outside arc here, center, CEN from the keyboard. CEN from the keyboard. Make sure you reference this outside arc, not the inside, the outside, and then enter. Now we'll cut it. This is the appropriate time to cut it. So we'll say extrude. We'll take this element, and we'll extrude it through. And then we're going to subtract. Main object, enter. Take this object out. Okay, looks good. We're going to come back over here. Looking good. Now what we want to do is cut the holes in here. But be careful. The holes in the cap are different diameter the holes in the bottom. The holes in the cap are straight through at 0.516, and the bottom are 1/2 inch, and they're 13 thread united course. That's what the 0.5 13 UNC means. 1/2 inch, 13 threads per inch, and it has a depth of 1.125. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab my polyline, okay? I like my polylines. I'm going to pick this corner, this edge right here, and we want to go over. Oh, excuse me, UCS, and set the UCS back to world. That was my mistake. Polyline. Now we're ready. So we'll pick a point here. We go 0.5 here. And then we go down in a little bit here. So what's the distance in there? 0.5. And then we go back this way, 0.75. Okay. Now, undo that last one. Let's try that again. Let's do a polyline. Let's pick a point. Let's point it in this direction. Let's tell it 0.5. Okay, 0.75. I've made my mistake. 0.75. Okay, you want to go from that corner, 0.75. Then we want to go in 0.5. Now we want to go back over this way, 1.5. Okay, there we go. Now let's say C for circle, at the little shift 2, at sign, a reference to the last point, D for diameter, and that's 0.5. Enter repeats the last command. Find the end point of that circle and press. Now we got 2. So let's go ahead while we have them. Let's go to modify and let's go to mirror. Let's take this one and this one and mirror it about the midpoint. Find the midpoint, MID, midpoint of this edge right here. You'll see it. See, it projects it down to the UCS and then project this way, okay? I'm going to go to the wireframe to do this so I can see what I'm doing better. I'm going to go to modify, mirror. I'm going to choose this one and this one. Enter. Come down here to the midpoint, MID, midpoint. Touch this element. See how it finds the midpoint. It projects down on the UCS. But it is there. There's the midpoint. And there it is. Okay. Escape. I'll do it again. Modify. Mirror. Take these 2 elements. Go from the midpoint to the midpoint over here. Press enter. And then we're going to extrude. Let's go ahead and extrude these elements. And the depth is negative 1.125. Negative 1.25. And that's the depth of the hole. These are threaded half-inch holes. Now we also have another set of holes right here in the middle. Okay. We have not cut these. These are still cylinders. Do a little conceptual. Ooh, that was better. Our wireframe. So let's go in. Let's create a polyline from right here. Now from that set of holes to the next set of holes, these line up this way. So what we want to do is we want to pull that in. We want to be right in the middle here. So let's see what happens. Let's go this way. 3 units. And see if that's in the middle. There it is. Perfect. 3 units that way. I'm going to come over here, pick that. 3 units that way. I'm going to say copy this hole. I'm going to use the center of that to the end point of that to the end point of that. And then we're going to enter it. I'm going to erase these lines that I no longer need, that I use for guidelines to set everything up. Take a look at it, make sure it's nice and symmetrical looking. We can shade gray if you want to. See that? And we've noticed one thing, missed subtracting the holes. So let's go into subtract, main object, enter, take this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one out. And there we have it. I'm holding my hand on the shift key, pressing on the mouse gently, and you see we have the holes. The holes don't go through, they just go down. So now you want to save this drawing, file, save as, and we're going to call this base. B-A-S-E. Just call it base. I call it base temp because I have a base already. So I'm going to call it base. Base. All you want is the model. You don't want to generate drawings or nothing. You just want the model. Okay? Now, we're going to move next. We're going to move up to the cap. So, after you finish this, save it as base, and then move over to start the cap.